Welcome everybody to another pick a card reading. Today's pick a card reading is all about what people admire and or potentially sometimes envy about you. So this reading is really a celebration of you, your wonderful qualities, talents, abilities, personality, whatever energy spirit really wants you to be aware of. And part of the purpose of the reading is to make sure you're aware of it, because sometimes you can be admired for something you don't even recognize in yourself. We're also going to touch upon where Spirit brings it up, if there are any circumstances where you are envied as well. Not so much to be negative, but just to let you know, because a lot of the time when people envy you, it comes from an insecurity in them rather than any ill intent. So we really want to just highlight where that's the case so that you can work out if there are times where you may modify how you come across to someone, or just be aware that they feel a little bit fragile in your presence. So that's the intent around the reading, to look at positive things and positive advice for you, but also to let you know. And if something does come up that's a little bit more troubling, then we will look at it and we will seek Spirit's advice across all of it to make sure that you have your best possible life. So as with all pick a card readings, the important thing is to pick the right deck to go to, and you may want to go to more than one. If you do feel that and feel drawn to that, it might be that your particular qualities are spread across a couple of readings, because this is a collective reading. So by all means do that if you feel drawn to more than one. But the main thing is to pick at least one so that you can go and find your reading. So to help with that, I have an amethyst crystal on pile 1, a black obsidian on pile 2, and a jade on pile 3. You may already know exactly which one you're drawn to, in which case the timestamps are in the video description box below. If not, pause the video and contemplate, meditate, whatever you do to tune in to find the right deck for you. And when you have done that, I will see you in the reading. Welcome pile 1. These cards were under the crystal that you chose to come to this reading, and they're meant to represent 3 key areas that may be separate or connected that people really admire in you, and a sort of overarching wild card of some of what brings that all together. And the sense around this, the first thing that I get very strongly is that many of you are natural healers in some way. You may be involved in that sort of work. You may be doing it on a spiritual level, or you may be doing it on a more traditional scientific medicine type level or therapeutic level. If you are not doing that, then you have those natural abilities. And I think those that have that, you bring it to all your relationships. What people see in you, I think, at a distilled level, is someone who's self-actualized. And what I mean by that is someone who has understood their strengths and weaknesses, has been brave enough to explore those differences, brave enough to understand what works for them and what doesn't work for them, and who they are truly authentically, without needing to criticize others or compete with others. There's a real sense here with the maiden, which is an energy of spring and rebirth and the new, and being prepared to look and grow within, a sense of innocence but not necessarily naivety that you exude. You exude the capacity to analyze yourself, the capacity to be able to take on criticism when it's right and when it's useful to you and use it, but not to deflect it when it isn't. So you're very strong in who you are, and some of that has been hard won in a way, I would say. You've gone through pain, you've gone through difficult times, whether that's in relationships, your family, or your career. You've learnt that, you've taken it on, and you've had this unshakable sense, this unshakable faith, not only in yourself, but in the patterns of life, and that things work out for the best in the end. There is a real sense of optimism underneath everything that people are really drawn to and really admire. And this wild card, the glorious mess, is all about being gloriously human, as it says. So you embrace that. You embrace the human situation. You're not brought into a depression by difficult things. You take things on and you learn about them. And I think that people may sometimes want to be you. I think that they see this and they think, oh, that's what it is to be secure. That's what it is to be authentic. I think one of the things that you probably need to deal with, and it comes up in a number of these cards, is around the proper boundaries with people, because people are naturally drawn to you because of that sense. It's like there's a stillness in you. It's like you're this character sitting here in the middle of the cosmos, basically feeling very still, very calm about what happens to you. And that has a really healing effect on people. People really do feel better when they've spent time with you or they've talked with you. Even if you sometimes raise issues that they need to look at or reflect stuff from your own journey that makes them look at themselves, there is a real sense of calm that they get from you and a real sense of growth and new opportunity. So, but it all comes down, as I say, to being self-actualized. And I think that that is not a common thing. It is uncommon to feel secure in your own difference and diversity, but when you get to that point, you feel secure in other people's difference and diversity, and that's what people really are drawn to with you. But it does suggest that sometimes you need boundaries, because people will, as I say, sometimes think with you what you're doing, if they follow it exactly, then they will feel as still and calm and present as you. But that's not necessarily true. You've done your own path, and as I say, dealt with your own issues. And it's interesting, the maiden, because this card is connected to spring, it makes me think of the story of Persephone. So Persephone had to go down into the underworld for the winter period each year. So going within, going to the depths of who you are, and then emerging with this sense of new growth and new positivity. So you really do this. People probably don't realize how much you really look into yourself and how much you hold yourself under some strict regulation. But because you know you have to do that, and you know what it is to be gloriously human, which is a bit of a mess for all of us, a glorious mess as it says, you have that capacity to be kind and empathic to others. So if people envy you, I think it is envying that sense of stillness, but we will see what cards come out. So I'm going to use one tarot pack now just to pull 3 cards for each of these elements. So that capacity to be optimistic, to grow, to be fertile in all sort of senses, creatively, emotionally, physically, the healing ability, the capacity to heal others and heal yourself, and this unshakable faith in the universe, in your connection to the divine, those sorts of things. We're just going to get a little bit more information on each of those and see whether there's any areas where there's something unconscious either for you or for people around you that's worth being aware of. So Spirit, give me a little bit more information for pole 1 on each of these qualities that people really admire in them. You're going to have to cover that so that you can see it. Okay, so when we're looking at this Persephone coming out of the underworld, this springtime, the maiden, fertility, youth, exuberance, positivity, it is suggesting to me that some people find that quite hard to understand. They admire it, but I think there is a little bit of envy or something around it, because we have the Star reversed and the Ace of Elixirs reversed, and then which is the Ace of Cups, and then we've also got the Two of Swords reversed. So there's a sense here that people may feel they admire what you do, but they don't fully understand how you do it. You may find yourself in debates quite often about why you would think the world is a good place, for instance, or why you believe in the end, why you have the faith that you have. It certainly also suggests that some of the people that could be around you come to you because they don't have that kind of innate optimism. They come almost to fill their cup, so to speak, with that by being with you. So we've got the Ace of Cups reversed. It's like people who are often drawn to you, I think, are people who have had who have inculcated more of the negative stuff in their life, and they come to be replenished. But it is suggesting, I think it's suggesting it quite clearly, and a couple of these others suggest the same thing, that you do need to be thinking about your boundaries. You're naturally very generous, and people know that. I don't get a sense they're exploiting it, but what's happening by the looks of things is that instead of taking your example and putting it into their life, they're not making the decisions they need to make. They're abrogating their decisions. Many of you, as I say, may very well be in therapeutic types of work or doing something within a workplace that you're in or around your friends that's like this. And I think it's important to know and be aware that if people almost abrogate their own choices to you, then if things don't work out, they may then blame you as well. So it's very, very important, I think Spirit is saying here, because people admire this, to make it clear to them that what you do is right for you, and it may or may not work for them, but they need to make that exploration themselves. They need to look at their own shadow. And as I say, with that or reverse, there is a possibility that some people envy you that capacity. Looking at the healing side of things, we've got the Devil, the Seven of Cups reversed, and then we've got the King of Talismans, which is the King of Pentacles. Some of you may well, part of your journey that got you where you have been, I'm getting, could have been dealing with your own demons, your own shadow, maybe even things like addictions, ways of looking at things that you eventually realised were not working for you. It's probably part of why you are so human. You understand humanity. You're not sitting on this from a philosophical position. You're sitting on it from learned experience. And you understand very clearly how easy it is to get caught in those sorts of energies and to start to manifest your own entrapment. So the healing around this for you is really about understanding how to free yourself from anything that is not true and not authentic. But it's very interesting in this pack because the Devil card has a mirror. And I think this is really picking up the energy here that you need, that you mirror out to a people what they bring to you. And so it's actually very likely, I think, Pile 1, that a lot of people think they're like you, but they're not. Like they, as I say, they feel like just being around you makes them like you. And that may be a little bit dismaying at times. And you may, in fact, see in that patterning the very thing that drew you in. Some of you may have met someone like you early in the piece and thought following what they were saying would be the right path. Some of you may have met spiritual leaders or something like that, and then you've eventually realised it wasn't the right path for you. So I just feel like there is a tendency around this for you. It doesn't feel so much like envy as projection, but it's worth being aware of. And then over here in terms of your faith, again, we've got the Eight of Cups. I feel like many of you have moved away from maybe a more traditional religion, a more traditional way of doing things, maybe what your family did, maybe early spiritual learnings. You've moved away from that because you've had that aha moment that it's all within you. And that's part of what draws people to you. That's part of what people admire in you. But it's come from having gone that journey. And some of what you saw, I think, in that journey made you realise that not all people on a spiritual, quote-unquote, path are being particularly honest about it. There's something where there is maybe hypocrisy or downright manipulation that you saw. And it was using your wish to be a seeker, your wish to be somebody looking for things. And the seeker is the fool. So, and that doesn't make you a fool, but the fool in tarot is somewhat naive. So I think it's showing a journey. I think the journey really started with this, with trying to find faith or spirituality for you, going through understanding then that not everything was what it seemed, working out what that meant for you and what patterns of behaviour you needed to let go of so you could be authentic. And then you reach the maiden. And people are now drawn to you almost like you were in the beginning. But what is different and what you need to be aware of is not everybody has that internal fortitude to make that decision, understand that, and go within themselves. So I really think it's about the ability that you have brings a lot of responsibility with it and a lot of awareness about that. So we will look at some of the unconscious, both for you and for other people around you, energies around all of these, I think, because they're connected, I think. It's a spiritual journey we're seeing, but it makes you very, very attractive to people, both spiritual seekers and seekers in general. And that's why the boundaries are so important. So let's use another pack of tarot, which is called the deck of the Celestials, but it uses celestial imagery rather than sort of traditional imagery or even sigil imagery. And for me, I think it's really a beautiful deck for bringing out the energy that's unconscious or sometimes super conscious, sort of the collective unconscious. So I'm just going to pull 2 cards for each of these just to get a little bit more information about what's going on under the surface here that you need to be aware of so that you can keep drawing the right people to you but have the boundaries that you need around those who aren't there for the right reasons or who need some gentle encouragement to get some other input and help. Okay, so Spirit is saying here with the Hermit and then with the 7 of Swords reversed again. So we've got that energy twice, one over here in the faith and one over here, I think, in how you now live that faith. I think Spirit is definitely saying that you need to be aware of the motives of people around you, that it's not that they don't admire and it's not even that they envy you, but some may be seeking to bring you over to their cause or get you to promote their cause in some way because there is such a powerful energy around you and because people really do see this and see you as someone who's got it worked out. Whether you figure that you've got it worked out or not is sort of not the point. They think that you have. I think that there are people who could try to potentially exploit that, you know, to get you to be the face of something that they want or to argue their point. So I think Spirit is just saying be aware that that is around you. You've seen it before, I think, in whatever form this was, whether it's a spiritual group that you're in or whether it was just your career or your family. You have seen it before. You will recognize it. But when you do, you need to go within and you need to sort of step back from what they want. So you may well be sought after to be the face of various things because of that energy that you do. And sometimes that will be fine, Pile 1, but sometimes you really need to look at the fine print and be aware of what people want from you and whether it fits with who you truly are. Over here on the faith, we have the Queen of Cups and then we have the 5 of Swords. So that suggests to me that part of this spiritual awareness, part of this separation from the old patterns of what you were to be authentic as the Queen of Cups, it did have a battle and there were probably people that you left in your life because of that. It may have been a female figure in your life with the Queen of Cups coming up, or the Queen of Cups there might be your own unconscious authenticity coming up and being brought to the surface because of debate and argument about what was believed and what was done. And I do get a sense that you've been around fairly significant hypocrisy or potentially fairly significant manipulation, but you have learnt from it. So the unconscious side of that provides that authenticity, which is now what people see in you, Pile 1, and it provides that understanding of when you need to have boundaries and withdraw. Down here around the healer, we have the Hierophant reversed. You will be doing something that's unusual and unconventional, and people admire that as well, and that's come from this. I do think with many of you, it's been something conventional, something family-based or whatever that's set you on this journey. And the good thing is that you will beat your own path. So Spirit is saying that really people don't so much envy you as want to be you, as I say, but some people may want to exploit you, but you really have learnt your lesson. Spirit is sort of saying that's not really going to be too much of a problem as long as you know when to withdraw when that happens. And then we've got the Lovers here. So there is a possibility that coming for you in the not too distant future, if it hasn't already happened, is a relationship that helps you bring all that together as well. That is someone who is on the same path as you and the same level as you. So one of the ways you'll know that, Pile 1, is that this person won't necessarily be coming to you for overt or covert healing. They will be recognizing in you a similar pathway, a similar authenticity, even if you have different viewpoints. That really doesn't matter that much. It's sort of someone who is like you, I think, coming towards you. And I think Spirit is saying that is a protection around you. And they may well have already dealt with some of this sort of energy, and that might be protective as well too. But people admire that in you, people are drawn to you, and I don't think you have to deal with jealousy so much as people wanting to take advantage of that essence that you have that everybody sees. So let's ask for a couple of other messages from Spirit in terms of oracles to close this out, to see what else Spirit would say to you to really get the best out of what people admire in you and to continue to do that. There's nothing problematic in what you're doing at all. It's really just understanding the impact it has on others. So let's first of all ask for some sort of energetic advice from Spirit. Okay, so I think what is happening here, we have two sort of elemental energies here. One is the oceans, which is the depth. It shows that you go to the depth, and it's interesting that I pulled it and put it above the card that gives me that sense of you having gone through the depths, gone through your own shadow and so forth. It's saying what you have understood about yourself and the world is vast. Vast as the ocean, as alive and teeming with possibility as the ocean, but you're well and truly balanced in it. You know how to operate there. And I think Spirit is saying, keep that balance. You don't need to change who you are. You just need to understand how people respond to it. And that's why we have the outer core. And I think the outer core is telling us that you need those boundaries. You need to protect yourself with what you have, the wisdom that you have that kind of protective energy, just like the water is around here, around the woman coming out of the ocean again. So it's very much that subconscious understanding of the emotional side of things. You may have water signs very strong in your chart, actually. I think Scorpio or Pisces or Cancer, there's a real water energy around you which goes to the heart of emotion and so forth. But this is saying have that protective core around you, because then you're only letting the right people in, the people who are like you, not the people who want to potentially exploit you. So last but not least, I want to use the Messenger Oracle to see what last messages Spirit wants to give you that protection and for you to continue on your path, because what people are admiring is very authentic in you, and you really don't want to change that. Okay, so firstly we have know your fears. So I don't think anything I've said to you in this is going to have been surprising. I think it's at most going to be a confirmation. I think you're probably already aware that you have some strange reactions from people who seem to either want to be you or want to exploit who you are in some way. So knowing those fears and knowing what that's triggering, and you more than anybody really have the capacity to do that, is important. This is saying heed the messengers. That card would come up, I think, when there are signs and synchronicities around you that will really trigger for you what you need to do. So pay attention to dreams, numbers that you see all the time, symbols that you might see, animals or creatures in nature in general that you see maybe unusually often, because there'll be something connected to that, something connected to what you're thinking, feeling, or deciding at that point that's important, and the messengers will be coming through to you. And it also says be patient. So I think that might be around this relationship, around finding the right person. It may in fact have been part of the subtext of all of this, Pile 1, that you've done all this work on yourself and you really, really are in a really good balanced state, but finding someone else like you may have been difficult. But I think that this is Spirit saying you will find that. And these two could be connected too. It could be if you meet someone and you're not sure, you think maybe they're the person, it may be that you start to see synchronicities. If you're already with someone, then it may be around finding the right people to connect to more broadly. But either way, people admire how true you are to yourself, how gloriously human you are, but how confident you are at the same time. And I think it is a little bit dismaying to some people, and it certainly is something they admire. And I don't think you trigger envy particularly. I think you trigger awe. And with some people, you trigger a sense of, is there someone that by connection to them I can benefit? So as long as you're aware of those things, and sometimes it might be mutually beneficial and that's fine, but as long as you're aware that energy is going on and you make the decisions that are true to you, you'll be fine, Pile 1. So I hope that resonates for you. I hope that you enjoyed the reading. If so, please like the video and subscribe. And if you have any comments on this, I'd love to hear about it in the comments below. It's a very interesting set of cards. I think you're a very interesting person. And so I would love to hear about that journey in whatever way you wanted to share it. But other than that, I hope that I see you in future readings. Welcome, pile 2, to your reading. These cards were under the crystal that you chose to come here, and these 3 represent the types of qualities, skills, talents that people admire in you. And this card represents a sort of connecting energy around it all. So I might start firstly with this. So the dragonfly is a symbol of wisdom and light and understanding, and there certainly is an energy across all of this. Just people do see you as someone who is balanced and who can think things through and can act with a great deal of dexterity and can work very well with other people. So those sort of energies are there. The dragonfly is about understanding that and about being optimistic, even when things look difficult or when there's conflict around. So there, because it says everything is going to be fine with this energy around it. Now, that's a very positive thing, because I do think that many of you may be involved in your work or in some other aspect of your life in mediating conflict and finding balance. You may be an amazing negotiator, an amazing leader. You're someone that people really think does think things through. So you, and because you're thinking this through and you're not sort of getting stuck in cognitive dissonance, you can look at yourself and you can look at situations in a very balanced way. But you're also balanced in terms of the drives that we tend to think of as masculine and feminine. And I always think it's a little bit tricky to talk in those terms, because it's not about all people who are one end of the gender spectrum are like something and all the ones that are the other end are like something. It's more those qualities that we think about. So the qualities of drive, ambition, creativity, action, and empathy, compassion, nurturing, caring. Those things you get, they see that you get that in very good balance. Some of you may in fact come across as a little bit androgynous or a little bit, people think, oh, in the way that people think about you, they might think, oh, this is, say, a woman who seems to be operating very much like a man in this environment, or vice versa. And that's just the stereotypes. But people may find it a little bit hard to fully work out where you are on the gender continuum, and that is your business, I'll do. But I think what people do think is that you are very clear about that and you are very fair about that. And they see you as someone who is very, very skilled at collaboration, working with others, being fair, and not being threatened by other people's abilities. Now, the one potential issue around this, and we'll see with the tarot as we come up, is that this card, when people think it isn't operating well, and this is what I'm sensing, if people get envious of you, they might look for where they think something isn't operating well. They may think because of your great leadership ability and your great ability to bring people with you and to stay balanced, they may start to project on you and think that you're very egotistical, or you think you know it all, or it's only your way or the highway. That's not who you are, but there just feels like there's a potential energy there. So we will see what the tarot says. So I'm going to pull 3 cards for each of these to get a little bit more idea about what's going on with each of those, and a little bit more idea about why people admire you for this, and also why some may envy you or compete with you, because there is, with all this fire energy, there is the capacity to be drawing competition to you, even though that's not really who you are. You really want to collaborate, but it doesn't mean that you're only going to find other people who feel as comfortable in themselves as you do. So let's see what the tarot has to tell us, pile 2. Okay, So I do think this is picking up some of those risks that I was talking about. I do think for you, people do absolutely admire those abilities in you and see you as a natural leader and a natural negotiator and a very clear thinker. That is all absolutely true. And they see you as someone who can solve problems and move forward with great speed and great agility. So none of that is not true. But I do think that you do get a bit of envy coming your way. I think that if you're not already in a leadership position, you're going to be. And so you need to be aware that this sort of energy can come towards you. It's interesting that this balance card, this sense of fairness and balance and understanding of diversity and all that, also got the Eight of Swords. Now, these two packs have different meanings for it. The Dreams of Gaia has a different sort of meaning around the Eight of Swords than traditional tarot does. So that's why I talked about what that meaning was. But when I see both of those together, it looks to me like what you need to be aware of is because you're very clever and you're very balanced and you're very fair, if somebody wanted to compete with you, then the way they would try to do it is in debate about philosophy. They would try to potentially box you in on what you believe. They would try to turn your capacity to be really balanced into indecision, for instance. It's not that, pile two, but that's the kind of way that somebody might try to take control of you or take over if they feel envious with you. And it does look to me like you have been going through in recent times a situation in work, friendship, family, even relationship, but it feels more like work or friendship or family than relationship, that you know that you want to not be on your own. You're not someone who wants to just work on your own. You're probably someone who would like to be in a big organisation or have a cause or something like that. And you know that that's part of your balance. You don't want to be the lord of everything, so to speak, but there's something that hasn't really worked recently. So I think you're aware of it. The good thing is that you do know things will work out. You do know you are balanced within yourself, that it will work out, but something is not returning what you expected. And I would say it's in some form of partnership. And someone in that is trying to box you up a bit. Now, whether they're consciously doing it or not is another matter, but they work very much from their head and they connect very much with that energy for you, and that's how they take control. So I think you need to be aware that people who are very balanced like you and are collaborative rather than dictatorial are fantastic leaders, but are not the norm of leadership. So I think that some of you are in leadership roles or are going to be, and this is a pattern that you're going to be dealing with because people won't fully understand it, and they may even take it as a weakness. It's not a weakness at all, but they may take it as a weakness. And you are very clever, but you have to be aware that that's both your strength and also your Achilles heel in this scenario when people are envious of you. And some people are, pile two, I have to say. I think you know it. As I say, it's showing up already. So this card under here is a kind of collaboration and partnership. Your capacity and wish to collaborate with others is something people really admire. But there's something, again, the Ace of Keys is the Ace of Swords reverse. We've got the King of Keys, which is the King of Swords reverse. And then we've got the Princess of Candles, which is the Page of Wands reversed. So I think something hasn't worked out. I think you're aware of this. If not, something is coming in the not too distant future, which is coming for you not to cause you any great concern, because we have Dragonfly up here. You'll have the wisdom to deal with it, but it's coming to teach you in the way that other people are not necessarily coming from the same place as you. I just think you're in highly competitive environments and you need to be clear on that. With the King of Keys reversed, there could literally be someone, again, using their mind, using argument, using philosophy, using data, who want to confound you. They aren't necessarily honest. So it is important to be aware of that. Over here in where you sit in the mind and where you can be really balanced, the good thing is it's saying that you do have a clarity of decision making. You can move through this, but it does again have a reversed card here with, well, two reverse cards. One is the Two of Pentacles and one is the Nine of Cups. So again, it's saying the same thing. There is some partnership around you that is not working in your best interests. There is someone who is envious or competitive of you. And if you don't know who that is yet, you will find who that is. The good news is you will realize this and you'll make the decisions that you need to make. But I think Spirit is saying, yes, you are right not to want to work only on your own. Your balance makes you a brilliant person to work with, and people really do admire that. But somebody, and sometimes this may happen as a pattern in your life and you just need to be aware of it, people do get jealous of that, and people do not understand it, and they seek to control someone in that situation, to make it, and it doesn't have to be, pile two, that they mean it in a bad way. It may just be that they want you to be on their side, and that's it. You know, they don't want you to be the balanced person. They don't want you to be the person who can see both sides. They want you on their side. So it could be a boss, or it could be a collaborative partner, but you will, the very thing that makes you strong is that balance and that breadth of understanding of things. So let's get a couple of cards from another tarot deck just to sort of see what advice Spirit has around this. This deck is a deck that's called the deck of Celestials. It has celestial imagery. It's very different imagery from most tarot decks. It's very beautiful. And it just gives me a sense, and you'll probably see it when you look at the cards, of what either is under the surface in an individual psyche or is part of the collective psyche, just because of the nature of the way the cards are created and shown. So let's just see what other advice around these things and around whatever this competition is that you need to know about. Okay, so firstly, I'm really encouraged because over here around where you're making your decisions, we have the Fool reversed, and I think that's good in this case. That's the getting of wisdom. That's the understanding that not everybody comes from the same place as you and with the same balance as you. And we have the Ace of Swords. So I think that Spirit is saying it's relatively easy for you to deal with this and recognize it when it comes, and it will come on a number of occasions in your life because you do learn from things. You do take things in. And you do understand the games that people sometimes play, whether it's, as I say, deliberate or not. So I think that's a very strong indication from Spirit that you will be able to deal with this, but you're going to draw that to you. And down here around the collaborative thing around it at the moment, we have the Queen of Wands, which suggests, I think that's partly you standing in your truth and standing in that fire energy. The Nine of Wands is reversed. So that's a sense of you having to make a decision about whether the effort around something at the moment is worth it. And you need to make that decision about who you want to be and what it means to be who you want to be. So I think it's again about making the decision. And then we've got death again, so another decision. So there's something very, if it's not happening right now in your life, pile two, it's coming. There is a decision. It's a key decision about you staying true to yourself and all these qualities that people admire in you. The beauty is we have the Empress here. So is it there that sense of creation and nurturing around you and abundance around you will not shift. I think that Spirit is saying, and it's said right from the beginning, saying everything is going to be fine. It's just being said so that you understand why people are like that, that not everybody is as advanced as you in terms of balance and clarity of thought and being consistent. So let's ask Spirit for some energy suggestions, advice for you, particularly if you are in the midst of this decision making about one or more people around you, or if it hasn't happened yet, when it does happen, what Spirit would suggest that you really focus on energetically. Okay. So again, I do think that there's something coming if it hasn't come already. Volcanoes is your own power and coming into your own power. It has a very strong sense of that fire energy and the Queen of Wands, but it is transformative. So, and the West is about completing certain things. I think Spirit's saying the same thing over and over. You are on a very long journey, I think, of leadership and inspiration to other people, and people will admire you and will follow you and will understand, but you will also get the pushback from those who want control rather than collaboration. And that energy, that power that you have is only going to build with each time you realize this and you clarify and you find your tribe, you find the people that really are connected to you. You complete cycles. Something is coming to an end around you, but it needs to come to an end so that you can stay true to yourself. So, pile two, I want to ask for 3 more messages from the Messenger Oracle, just any other advice that Spirit has for you about staying true to these things that people do genuinely admire in you, but also being able to navigate the envy and I think competition that this type of personality that you have can draw to you. Okay, so it's saying share your thoughts. That is telling me there are people around you who are already on the page with you and want to be with you and want to follow you or want to, be like you or whatever it might be. There are people who will understand. Don't feel that you are being isolated. This person may try to make you feel that way, like you don't fit in. So again, if you're in an organisation and you're a natural leader and people are being drawn to you, maybe someone in a position of the hierarchy doesn't like that and is trying to tell you that you're overstepping the bounds and so forth. That may mean that the completion is leaving that place so that you can work somewhere that more appreciates your qualities. But it does suggest that there are people around you who could be with you, and it's saying here be honest. So I think to the degree possible, I would say, even though Spirit's saying this, if it is in an organisation and you're dealing with sort of cultural issues and workplace politics, then share your thoughts and be honest with the right people. Be careful around what you do around that. It's part of how you make the decision and it's part of how you don't get boxed up. You've also got the source of all. That suggests to me that the Spirit is saying they are watching over you, that you are connected. What you're doing is connected. And it doesn't surprise me because anybody who has that balance is connected to the divine, because the divine is ultimately about balance. It's about all things. It's about the acceptance of all things. And I think it's also going back to the dragonfly here, pile 2, and saying all will be fine. All will be fine because you have a long journey and what you bring is very important. And many, many people will see it and many people will admire it. But you will, like iron filings to a magnet, draw people to you who want to control you, who want to prove very old-fashioned ways of doing things, very hierarchical ways of doing things, very exclusive and preferential ways of doing things. And you're the exact opposite of that. So, but if you share your thoughts and are honest with the right people, people will really appreciate where you're coming from and will see who you are. So pile 2, people like you are very important in this world. Whenever I do a reading like this and I get this energy, I really want to honour that and say that. So don't lose heart. What you are, you have travelled a long way to get where you are and probably over a number of lifetimes. And people will see that. People do admire it. And the glitches that come along with the envious or the competitive ones, you've just got to get to the point where you see it, understand it and move on. I think that's all that Spirit is saying. And again, everything will be fine. So I hope that resonated for you. I hope it was helpful because I do think many of you are in some sort of a battle at the moment or one's coming that you will win, I believe, but it's understanding the dynamic that will help you win it. So I do hope that it resonated. I do hope you enjoyed the reading, even though it's a little bit challenging, some of this. I have absolute faith in you to be able to deal with this. And if you did enjoy the reading, I hope that you'll like the video and subscribe. And if you have any thoughts or comments about this, I'd love to hear about it in the comments. Otherwise, I hope to see you in future readings. Welcome, pile 3, to your reading. These cards were under the crystal that you chose to come to this reading, and they represent the 3 main areas that may be interconnected or may be separate about what people admire about you, and a sort of overarching narrative about how that all comes together. So I might go through these first and then move to this. One of the key things that is coming across in this is that I think that many of my pile 3 are highly creative people. There's a very strong fire energy around you. People see you as vibrant, they see you as creative, they see you as action-oriented, a bit dazzling really with that sort of combination with the sort of undifferentiated rush of creative energy, fire and inspiration of the ace. And then we have the 4 of Wands here, which in this particular pack is about focus, dedication, having the skills, doing the work. So there's a very high action orientation here. People don't think you sit around contemplating the universe. They think you get on with things and they really admire it. You get inspiration, you get ideas, and then you focus you work on your craft, you do whatever you need to do to get the desired action, the desired outcome. And they really admire in that. They think you're highly skilled at what you do. They think if you come up with an idea, it's going to come into fruition. It's not a pipe dream. They're likely to follow you to the ends of the earth about certain things because they've seen it before. They've seen how you can apply that focus and that will to bringing something into being. There's really no doubt about your capacity to do that. For many of you, you may be older or you may be so skilled in what you've done that you take on a kind of counselor role with people. And I think with this, because of the fire energy, it's really more like mentoring and coaching. It looks as though you are someone who has a great deal of empathy and understanding of other people, and people feel that, and that you may guide other people because you've been able to prove the formula. People believe you. People absolutely believe if you say that you can do something, that you can do it, or if you give people advice about how to do something, they will listen and follow that. That's why I feel some of you may be teachers, but I think a lot of you it's around creativity, or in work it might be around being a great leader who coaches others to understand the importance of action and to move towards goals with discipline and with focus. And overarching it all is we have cherish, which is about rediscovering the sweetness of life. So for you, what they see is each time you have an inspiration and you bring it into being, you are grateful for that. And if others have helped you along the way or collaborated with you, you will honor that. You're not the sort of person who says at the end of something, it was all me. Probably even if it was all you, to be frank, you will always share in the bounty of that and in the acknowledgement of that. And you model that behavior for people. So they see you as a doer. They see you as someone who really can achieve things and can bring creative ideas into being. So I do think some of you will be already very well known for your creative abilities or for your inspirational leadership abilities or your craft in whatever form that is, in really knowing your stuff. You probably do things incredibly quickly actually with that focus because you don't get distracted easily. And I think people admire that as well. They admire the fact that with all that what goes on in the modern world and all the information that's coming at us, one of the hardest things to do is to focus and to really see something through. But you absolutely do that, and people really, really admire it. And they like the fact that you're grateful for outcomes. You're not egotistical about it, even though I think you're probably someone who achieves things more than many people do. You go further than many people will. So if you haven't already, you will. But it's because of this focus, and people don't seem to resent it at all. But let's have a look with tarot at a little bit more information about each of these things. So the focus, the inspiration, and this mentoring sort of energy that you have. Just to see what else Spirit wants to tell you, if there's anything you need to be aware of, anybody, as I say, being envious or not fully understanding what you're doing. Though the overarching sense I have here is that your actions speak for themselves, and I think it would be hard for people to argue with that. But let's see what the tarot has to say. Okay, so there's something very interesting here. I'm going to start here and then I'm going to go into these because I think there is an interesting thing Spirit wants to talk to you about. Here, in terms of your focus, your skill, your craft, the way that you can develop things and get things done, we have another ace. We have the Ace of Cups. That's a sense of undifferentiated blessing around emotion. So there's an emotional connection which probably comes down to that counselor sort of feeling as well. It's not just about action, it's also about being close to your heart. And there's definitely a sense that for you, in most cases, you will be able to work with people in a team way with the four of keys there, and come out of the behind the scenes sort of thing. So it looks as though it's saying when you have that inspiration, when you're ready, you can come out of contemplation, work with other people, not be on your own. So it's certainly saying that as a general rule, people see who you are, they admire who you are, they want to work with you. And if you come out of something, out of this contemplation with a new idea, people will follow. People are absolutely behind you. But down here around the empathy and the counselling, I do think, although by and large, again with the Six of Wands there, so there's a sense of victory, you will always prevail. Your energy and your skill will always prevail, and people really recognise you, and you are going to be known in some way, whether it's in an organisation, whether it's in the world, you are going to be known. But it does look as though sometimes there are the people who can't keep up with the Five of Swords there, the Five of Keys, and the Queen of Talismans, which is the Queen of Pentacles reversed. There may be people who can't keep up. I think that's really what I'm seeing here. There may be people who fall away from an activity. And so there's an interesting tension here where you do want to work with others and you are naturally very good at that and bringing people with you. But I think Spirit is saying don't be disheartened if sometimes not everybody can get to the finish line with you. You'll get to the finish line, but sometimes there's sort of collateral damage on the way, not because of anything that you've done, but because some people are not as focused, grounded, skilled, and so forth around you. So thinking about that and how you manage that is important. I don't think it's necessarily envy coming to you. I just think it's some people don't have that almost focus muscle that you have. So don't allow that to put you off what you're doing. It will just help you further. Not everybody is going to turn out to be the best student of what you're saying, I think Spirit is saying. But it doesn't feel bad. That doesn't feel bad. But over here, I do think, if it's not happening at the moment, I do think that there is someone, and this is coming up as the King of Wands reversed and the Emperor reversed, that is envious of you, to be frank. Someone who in your field, so say you're a creative person, it might be someone who's a little bit more advanced supposedly than you, or it might be someone who's a critic or a editor or just someone who's got a little bit of a power over how something is seen. And I think that they are threatened by something that you're doing. I do. And they may, if you let them have too much influence, slow down or stop the magnum opus. So the magnum opus is an additional card in this pack, and it's about the great work. It's about the magnificent production. There's something. Spirit is saying there's something very big, whether this is happening right now or whether Spirit is talking to you about it as you progress. But there will be a point at which you're trying to do your great work, the thing that really matters to you. And at that point, there is going to be someone around you who is envious and is trying to control it. So it may be that what we're looking at here is almost a rite of passage between these three to prepare you for this so that that doesn't occur. You start with having the contemplation, the inspiration, and coming out to work with other people. You find along the way that some can go the journey with you and some can't, so that by the time you get to this, you have the right team around you and you understand the dynamics that you're dealing with. Because I think Spirit is only saying this so that you know, so that you're aware. And it may be that if you come across someone like that, the thing to do is to look for who else you can work with, who else you can get support from. This person is going to see and understand what you have. The other thing that I'm getting very strongly, if it's a creative project, is don't give away too many of the details to anybody until you've really started to land it, because this person might try to copy the idea or take it in some way, and they can't. They don't have what you have. They can't bring it fully into being, but you don't want that sort of energy either. So I think people will admire this amazing inspiration, creative. You're someone who thinks very innovatively. You're someone who sees outside the square. You absolutely don't rework anything. What comes from you comes from you, and so it's very unique. But I think people can want to copy that or can want to take that on. So let's use another deck to get a little bit more information for you about what's going on unconsciously. So this is a deck called the Deck of Celestials. It has very unusual, beautiful artwork, which is about celestial bodies, not necessarily people or even sigils. But to me, it speaks of both the collective unconscious and the individual unconscious really beautifully. So I want to pull a couple of cards for each of these just to give you some more information and guidance from Spirit. Okay. So firstly, we've got the Ace of Cups twice. So Spirit is very much saying something is coming that is so unique to you, that comes from your subconscious, which comes from your lived emotional experience. It's very powerful, and not to take that out into the world and let it be seen with judgment reversed until you're ready. So I think it's just doubling down on that advice to you, that you will have something very new and people will really admire it. And you may have already had experiences like this. So if you have, just learn from those and remember that you know, the energy that you put into something, you should be able to honor and keep it and have it for yourself, not necessarily taken from you by someone. Around your mentoring and coaching of others, it's actually really good energy here. I think that it's saying it's not going to be many people that can't come along with you, because we've got the Knight of Wands and the King of Wands here. I think you'll actually find someone as well. So I think Spirit's just trying to say, look, there's swings and roundabouts about this. You will find someone who is like the Knight of Wands to your King of Wands. So you will find someone who you really can mentor and help, because you're not competitive. You're just about the creative product, and you love that, or the work product, or whatever it is. And this person will be like you, so that's good. So I think it's saying don't get disheartened about that. But over here, it's interesting because, let me just double check. Yes. We have the Queen. Let me just, again, it's a little bit hard to read the writing from a distance. So yes, the Queen of Swords, and then we have the Hierophant reversed. So I think that this is giving us some information about the person that you're dealing with. They're not necessarily coming from a traditional space. So if they're a gatekeeper, they're a gatekeeper of something a bit quirky or unusual, and you might be initially attracted to that. So I think it's just a warning around that, because the Queen of Swords is there, and the Queen of Swords is like the critic, the person who is looking for what is wrong and what isn't working in something. So if they were trying to dissuade you from a course so that they could do something themselves, then what they would do is critique what you do. And you might, for some reason, because you've got the King of Wands there, because you think they're like you, but they're not. You're the King of Wands the right way up. They're the King of Wands the wrong way up. You think they're like a peer, or there's someone a little bit further along the path than you that you can learn from, but they will use that. They will use their intellect and their criticism of you. So I think what Spirit is saying is that you're meant to be the mentor of people. You probably don't need a mentor. If you feel that you do and you've got one, be careful. Be careful of what you tell them, because it just feels like there's someone who tries to take that role in your life, but it's not to your benefit, and there is envy there. So be careful and find your tribe and find the people who you can connect with. So let's ask for a little bit more advice from Spirit around the sort of energetic, elemental energies around you, what advice they give you about making sure that you do find the right people to work with, that you can cherish and enjoy and be grateful for what you're bringing to the world and others can be, and so that you really do realise this incredible potential to bring in something new that people do admire you for. Okay, so I think what Spirit is saying here, we've got wind, which is an energy of sort of throwing everything up in the air and working out what is going to last. It's got a feeling to me a bit like the Tower card in the tarot, where things that aren't right anymore, things that are cleared out, sort of break down and move away, but it is a bit tumultuous. And then we have West, which is completing something. So I think there's a couple of messages here for you, Pile 3. The first is, when you come across this sort of energy, you'll feel it. You'll feel that sort of tumultuousness about it. You'll feel that something's not quite right, and you clear it out and complete it as quickly as possible. The other part of this, I think, is a much more primordial energy that comes from you. This energy is partly this creative force with the two Aces of Cups here, the Ace of Fire, and then this focus, this incredible focus that you have. You can stir up and out of chaos create something, out of something very, very new, and you will complete it. So I think that it's a dual message. On one level, it's saying when you find the wrong energy, clear it out of your life quickly. But beyond that, honour and work with that incredible creativity that you have and your capacity to focus and bring it to completion. So to finish off pile 3, I just want to use one other oracle, the messenger oracle, to see what other messages Spirit might want to give you to make sure that you do fully realize these talents and this innovation and inspiration that you have and that people really do admire. Okay, so firstly it's saying be patient. So maybe for many of you, you're right at the beginning. Maybe that's why we're seeing aces so strongly. You might be right at the beginning of what you're going to create, your magnum opus, the thing that really matters to you. But you've got all the skills, as I say, and all the focus to do it. But patience is part of it. The nice thing is that people who are good at focus are good at patience. So that will work very strongly for you. It says love that you're different. You are different. Even to be able to focus like that is different. Most people can't do that, pile 3. So I think love what's different, love what's innovative. You're here for a reason. You're meant to bring in something in whatever field that you work in, whatever creativity you have, even if it's around relationships. You're meant to bring in something that's different and is very true to you. And there's a lot of blessing around it for you. But it is about what's different. But it doesn't mean that you can't be connected with other people. It says we are all connected. So I think that is really picking up that mentoring, the fact that you will find people who get what you're doing, the people who will want to work with you, the people who will take your legacy on, you know, in the longer term after you are gone. There's a sense of something there that has endurance and has real heft to it. So, but that is about really honouring that counsellor, that emotional connection you have, and not being too dismayed by the people whose energy, they're not at the same vibrational energy as you. They want to be, but they're not. So just being aware of those, it's kind of like then you can bat it away and refocus on what you need to do. So I'm really excited for you, pile 3. I think there's some really interesting things you're going to bring into the world. And I'd love to hear a bit about it in the comments, but because I do think you need to protect your creativity, if you do want to comment, don't give away too much. It's really important that you develop it and you're ready to launch it before you say too much about it. But I have no doubt you're going to bring in something very special in the world, and that people already admire in you that energy and that focus and that capacity to bring others along with you. But I think they're even going to more admire what it is that you create in the end, because I think it will be a magnum opus. I think you will have a great work in whatever field it is. So I hope that resonated for you, and I hope that you enjoyed the reading. If so, please like the video and subscribe. And as I say, if there is anything you can say in the comments that doesn't give away what you're working on, I'd love to hear about it. But beyond that, I really wish you well and wish you luck with this. I think you probably don't need luck, but I'm going to wish you luck anyway. And I hope to see you in future readings.